Heartless Landlord Evicts. Single mom. Her son's secret talent shocks the city. In the quiet gray corners of Chicago, where life moves fast but people often feel forgotten, one woman was fighting a battle no one could see. Emily Thompson didn't look like a hero. She was a tired waitress with cracked shoes and a soft voice, a single mom doing everything she could to keep her son safe. But the world doesn't reward kindness. It tests it. And Emily was about to face the biggest test of her life. It was just after 6 a.m. when Emily's alarm buzzed in the tiny apartment they called home. The building creaked with every gust of wind that howled through the alley outside. She rubbed the sleep from her eyes and tiptoed past the futon where her 10-year-old son, Liam, still slept curled under a patched quilt. The air was cold. The heater had gone out again and she couldn't afford to have it fixed. They always made do. Emily walked into the cramped kitchen, where cracked tiles lined the walls and a single pot of oatmeal bubbled gently on the stove. She glanced at the growing pile of unopened bills on the table. Rent, electricity, late notices in red ink. Her chest tightened. She poured 2 bowls, one much smaller than the other. She always ate less on days like this. Liam shuffled in, rubbing his eyes. His messy brown hair stuck out in every direction and he clutched his sketchbook like it was a piece of him. "Morning, baby," Emily said softly, trying to smile. "Morning," Liam mumbled. He sat at the table and immediately began sketching, barely touching his oatmeal. Emily leaned over to peek at his drawing. It was a picture of their building, but instead of crumbling bricks and cracked windows, it looked like a castle. Flowers blooming from the walls, sunlight beaming through the clouds. She couldn't help but chuckle even though it made her throat hurt. "You've got such a big imagination," she whispered. Then came the knock. 3 hard raps on the door. Her stomach dropped. She opened it slowly to reveal Mr. Grayson, their landlord. He was tall, cold-eyed, and always wore the same expression, like he'd rather be anywhere else. He didn't waste time. "Emily, rent was due on the 1st. It's now the 5th. We've been down this road too many times." "I know. I'm trying," she said, gripping the edge of the door. "I picked up extra shifts. I just need a few more days." Grayson shook his head and handed her a folded paper. "Final notice. 5 days to vacate." Then he turned and walked away, his polished shoes tapping down the hallway. Emily stood there for a moment, frozen. The world suddenly felt too loud. The hum of the fridge, the drip of the faucet, her own heartbeat. Liam looked up from his drawing. "Are we getting kicked out?" Emily tried to smile. "No, sweetheart. We're just moving. A new adventure." But her voice cracked and Liam knew better. He always did. That day, Emily worked 2 jobs back to back. At the diner, her feet ached from standing 10 hours straight, customers barely looking her in the eye. Her manager barked orders while Emily forced a polite smile, cleaning sticky booths and delivering coffee refills. After that, she cleaned offices downtown, pushing a mop through echoing hallways, wiping smudges from glass that overlooked a skyline she couldn't afford to touch. She didn't eat dinner. She packed up half a sandwich to bring home to Liam and rode the late bus home with her head resting against the window, tears quietly tracing the glass. Back at the apartment, she found Liam asleep at the table, his sketchbook open beside him. She turned the pages gently and stopped on one. It was her. Tired, slouched in her uniform, but with wings on her back, angel wings. Above her head he'd written, "My hero." She pressed the drawing to her chest and wept silently, careful not to wake him. The next day was no better. Emily visited the city housing office, waiting hours in line just to be told the shelters were full, and the housing wait list was months long. No space, no help, no answers. Liam stayed strong, even though Emily knew he sensed everything. He never complained. He just kept drawing. And somehow, in every one of his pictures, they were smiling, holding hands, safe. She watched him one night as he drew by flashlight in bed. He was sketching a superhero, his own creation, a boy who could draw things and bring them to life. On the corner of the page, he wrote, "Fix the world with pictures." Emily turned away quickly, tears stinging her eyes. She didn't want him to see her cry again. When she finally sat down that night, her bones aching, her body begging for rest. She realized she hadn't thought of herself in weeks. Every thought was about Liam, his safety, his future, his hope. That's all she had left. But now, even that was in danger. When a person carries too many burdens, they start to wear them in their eyes. And Emily, she wore hers like shadows, circling just beneath the surface. Every smile was strained, every breath counted, but she wasn't thinking about herself. All her thoughts lived inside the small, growing boy who slept beside her each night. And now, with the eviction deadline only days away, those thoughts were turning into desperation. It was early morning again. The sun hadn't even risen, and the apartment was still. Emily carefully zipped her jacket, wrapped her scarf tight, and left Liam a note on the table. Be back by lunch. There's cereal in the cupboard. I love you. The streets of Chicago were biting cold, her shoes soaked through from last night's snow. She walked to the diner, her breath fogging in front of her, rehearsing what she would say to Donna, her manager. Maybe she could take someone's canceled shift. Maybe a double. Maybe anything. Inside, the heat was stifling. Clatter of silverware loud against the buzz of fluorescent lights. She walked in through the back door and immediately began stacking cups, tying her apron, pretending to look confident. Donna, she asked quietly during a lull, I was wondering if anyone dropped a shift this week. I could take it. Donna glanced up without much interest. We're already over hours, Em. Unless someone calls out, you're stuck at 24 this week. Emily nodded and smiled tightly. 24 hours. Barely enough to cover groceries, let alone rent. She cleared another table, pocketed a $2 tip, tried not to show how badly she was trembling. Meanwhile, Liam sat alone at the kitchen table at home. He hadn't touched the cereal. Instead, he worked on a new drawing, one of the apartment building being lifted off the ground by balloons, like something out of a dream. In the sky, he'd drawn himself and Emily holding hands, waving to a crowd down below. But even his imagination couldn't hide the truth. The apartment was nearly empty. Boxes lined the walls. His mom had quietly started packing things she didn't think he'd notice. Winter coats, their favorite books, framed pictures. That afternoon, Emily visited the city's family assistance office. She stood in a long line for nearly an hour, wrapped in her old jacket, clutching a folder of pay stubs and eviction notices. When she was finally called up to the counter, she sat across from a tired-looking worker behind a plastic screen. I'm about to be evicted, Emily said, her voice shaking. I have a 10-year-old son. We've been trying to stay ahead, but I can't do it alone anymore. The woman nodded sympathetically, but mechanically. I understand. Unfortunately, family housing is severely backed up right now. We can put you on a list, but it might be at least 4 to 6 months before something becomes available. 4 to 6 months? Emily's voice cracked. We won't even have a place to sleep by next week. The worker gave her a printed pamphlet with addresses of local shelters, none of which she recognized. None that sounded like somewhere she could safely take a child. She walked out of the office, clutching the paper, feeling more alone than ever. At school, Liam continued to retreat into his drawings. His teacher, Ms. Carter, noticed the change, how quiet he'd become. She peeked over his shoulder one day and saw him sketching a woman who looked very much like Emily, standing bravely in front of a dark storm, holding an umbrella over a little. Boy's head. That's beautiful, she said softly. Did you draw that for your mom? Liam just nodded. That evening, as Emily arrived home from her janitorial job, Liam greeted her at the door with the sketchbook open in his hands. I drew this for you, he said shyly. It's us. And there's a dragon, but I made you, strong, like a knight. Emily knelt down, touched the drawing, and smiled through glassy eyes. I don't need armor, she whispered. I've got you. She held him longer than usual that night. The next morning, Emily visited a nearby church pantry. The line wrapped around the block. She stood quietly, holding Liam's hand, waiting for canned vegetables, bread, and maybe something warm. One of the volunteers, a kind older woman named Martha, saw Liam doodling while they waited. Did he draw that? She asked Emily, motioning toward the sketch of a cityscape made entirely of musical instruments. Emily nodded. He draws every day. It's like his own world. Martha smiled. He's got something special. Don't let that get buried, okay? But buried was exactly what Emily feared. Buried under stress, fear, cold nights, and an eviction notice hanging on the fridge like a ticking clock. On the final night before the deadline, Emily made grilled cheese sandwiches for dinner, thin slices of bread with the last of the cheese. She tried to make it feel special. "We'll have a little picnic right here," she said, spreading a blanket on the floor. "Like a celebration." "Because we're moving?" Liam asked, his voice barely audible. Emily hesitated. "Yes, baby. But don't be scared. We'll figure it out. We always do." After dinner, Liam curled up on the couch, and Emily sat alone on the fire escape, her breath fogging in the night air. The city stretched in every direction, unfeeling, glittering, beautiful and indifferent. She lit a cigarette, one of the last she had, even though she'd promised herself she was done. She needed something to hold. And as she sat there, she whispered to herself, "Please, just one break. Just one." Sighed. Liam was still awake, drawing by flashlight. He didn't cry. He didn't ask questions. He just drew. His quiet way of holding everything together. His last drawing that night was of a stage, a huge one, with bright lights, and in the center was a boy holding a pencil like a microphone. The crowd, thousands, all cheering, and beside the stage, standing proud, his mom smiling with tears in her eyes. He didn't know it yet. But that picture would change everything. The world has a way of breaking you, testing your resolve, your spirit. But in the most unexpected of places, the cracks begin to reveal hidden strength. Emily's life had been one failure after another. But through it all, there was a quiet determination, a love so deep for her son, a drive so relentless, that nothing, not even the city's coldest corners, could snuff it out. What she didn't know was that the winds were changing, and soon it wouldn't be just her fighting for their future. The day after the final eviction notice, Emily woke to find Liam at the kitchen table, sketchbook in hand. She could feel the weight of the day ahead, the moving trucks waiting to arrive. But Liam wasn't drawing their situation. He was focused on something new. "Mom," he said, his voice steady, "I think I'm going to show someone my drawings." Emily turned slowly, surprised. "Who, honey?" Liam's eyes glinted with determination. "There's a contest. They're looking for art at the art gallery downtown. I want to enter." Emily's heart stopped for a moment. She'd never considered that Liam's talent could go beyond the comfort of their tiny apartment. She hadn't thought about it like that. She thought of his drawings as a way to escape, not a way to break free. "Liam, you don't even have a place to go right now." "I know, Mom. I've got to try." His words hung in the air like a lifeline, and for the first time in weeks, Emily let herself believe in something outside the narrow walls of survival. She kissed the top of his head and nodded. "Okay, let's do it." Later that afternoon, Emily walked into the city's art gallery, a place she'd only seen from the outside. The wide, echoing hallways felt foreign. Liam clutched his drawings to his chest as they approached the contest table. The organizer, a well-dressed woman named Vanessa, took one look at his artwork and smiled. "This is amazing," she said, genuinely impressed by the detail and emotional depth in Liam's work. "I've never seen such raw talent. You've got a gift, kid." Liam beamed, a quiet pride shining in his eyes. Emily stood behind him, unsure of how to react, half expecting this to be another letdown, another dream too far out of reach. But when Vanessa handed Liam a golden ticket, an invitation to have his art displayed at the gallery's upcoming exhibition, Emily's breath caught in her chest. "This is your chance," Vanessa said. "We'll make sure your work is displayed front and center." For the first time in months, Emily felt a spark of hope ignite deep in her soul. Hope doesn't always come with fireworks. Sometimes it arrives in the form of a small decision. The act of choosing to believe that something, no matter how impossible, is possible. That moment in the gallery was the turning point in their story. The moment Emily realized that life could still surprise her, that her son could still find a way to shine even in the darkest of days. The next few weeks passed in a blur of excitement and anxiety. Liam worked tirelessly, improving his artwork for the exhibition. Emily focused on moving out of the apartment. She found a small room at a local shelter, but it wasn't a permanent solution. Still, it was better than nothing. She knew that. It wouldn't be long before they had to leave the shelter too. But now she had something else to hold on to. Liam's dream. On the day of the exhibition, Emily and Liam arrived early. The gallery was filled with people, artists, collectors, city residents, walking through the aisles, admiring the displays. Emily was in awe of how grand it all seemed. It wasn't like the life she knew, the struggle she fought every day. It felt like they had crossed into another world. Liam's artwork was displayed in the front of the room, and as they walked toward it, Emily felt her heart skip a beat. There, in bright frames, were the drawings of their lives. Emily standing in front of a castle with wings, a cityscape made of music, a boy with a pencil larger than life. As people stopped to admire his work, one of them, a well-dressed woman, turned to Emily. "This is your son's work?" Emily nodded, trying to hide the emotion swelling in her chest. "I've seen a lot of art," the woman continued. "But this is special. There's something about the way he sees the world. I think I can help him." Emily's heart raced. "What do you mean?" "I work for a nonprofit," the woman explained. "We sponsor gifted children, provide scholarships, even mentorship programs. If he wants, we can help him develop his talent. It's clear he has a future in this." Emily's tears finally spilled over. She never allowed herself to dream for a future where they weren't struggling. This was the opportunity Liam needed to escape the life she had been trying to protect him from. Sometimes the future is a bridge, built one step at a time, from the pieces of broken dreams and hard-earned hope. And for Emily and Liam, that bridge had been built with sketches and kindness, with the power of a mother's love and a child's quiet genius. But their story was only just beginning. Months later, life had changed. Liam was enrolled in a gifted arts program, his work being mentored by some of the most renowned artists in the city. Emily still worked long hours, but now she had a renewed sense of purpose. She wasn't just surviving anymore, she was thriving alongside her son, who had blossomed into someone she could have never imagined. One evening, as they sat in their new apartment, a small but cozy place, Liam turned to Emily with a smile that lit up the room. "Mom," he said, "remember when we were scared? When we didn't know how we'd make it?" Emily looked at him, tears in her eyes. "Baby, I remember." Liam placed a drawing in front of her, a picture of the two of them, standing hand in front of a house. Not just any house, but one filled with warmth, light, and love. "Don't worry, Mom," Liam said. "We're going to be okay. We already are." And in that moment, Emily knew he was right. They had made it. Not just because of luck or circumstance, but because they had each other, and that was all they'd ever needed. In the quiet moments when the world seems like it's too much to bear, remember this: there's always a way forward, even in the darkest of times. Emily and Liam Thompson found their way through courage, love, and the belief that dreams, no matter how big or small, are worth fighting for.